Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
What are they looking at? Why don't they think about hospitality? And in a nutshell, hospitality, and particularly hotel and lodging, it has, an awareness problem. It has an awareness problem where 41% of people don't know anyone who works in the industry.
Really?
94% have never worked in the industry. 90+% have never taken a class related to hotels and lodging. And so, there's a big awareness problem. The other side is, hotels and lodging has an image problem. Where only 37% of respondents thought that it offered careers for someone like me, or was 45% said it not necessarily a career I could be proud of. These are things that in addition to unemployment, are kind of hurting the hotel and lodging industry, and not necessarily just because people believe these things doesn't make them true.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
Hey everybody, thank you very much for tuning back into Slick Talk. This episode is featuring Ron Mitchell, the CEO of Virgil Holdings and also of Hcareers, which is a relaunch platform that is basically been around in the industry for a very long time, about 20 years, and has been relaunched as of this year. And really exciting stuff, because not only is this a job board for people in the hospitality industry, but it's really a good tool to help advance your career and maybe acquire some of the skill sets or develop some of the skills that you already have in order to get the dream job. And also, if you are an employer itself, on how to retain your employees and how to find and make sure that you are the right match, and that when you hire a new employee, you get to keep them and retain them. So I hope you guys really get to enjoy the episode. Ron and I were really passionate about the discussion. So find it out more at hcareers.com, or you also find everything on slicktalkthepodcast.com as well. And I really hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Well, I started like most college grads, although today most grads have a lot more transparency into the types of careers that are available to them than I did coming out of college back in 1992. But started out in my career in finance and investment banking, and then private equity, investing in businesses and companies. And while I was on that side of the table, investing in other entrepreneurs, I always had an itch to be on the other side of the table and be one of those entrepreneurs and one of those operators. And so, after a number of years of being an investor, I jumped to the other side and started, building. Essentially, got passionate about helping people navigate their careers. I was particularly focused on student athletes when I first started. I was a college athlete, played basketball at Harvard, and knew the challenges that athletes specifically faced in their career navigation challenges. So I sort of jumped in and started building some tools and technologies around assisting student athletes to leverage certain career opportunities. And as that progressed, got more deeply involved in and excited about, and frankly disappointed in what was out in the market to help people of any background, whether an athlete or not. And subsequently just dug deep and started building different technologies to help people better, navigate their career journey.
Very nice. So with kind of Virgil Holdings and all that kind of stuff, how did you get to that point? Like, how did you become an investor and kind of in that realm of helping entrepreneurs kind of take off their career? What was the stepping stone for you, I guess, in that area?
Stepping stone to being an investor, or stepping stone to becoming an entrepreneur?
Both. Let's do both.
As an investor, when you're in finance, you're dealing with a lot of numbers. You serve a lot of customers or a lot of clients, and you don't really have ownership. It's very transactional, particularly in the side of the business I was in. And I wanted to be more vested in the investments that we made. So I switched from investment banking to private equity, where you're invested in those businesses. You work directly with those entrepreneurs, deeply with those entrepreneurs, helping them navigate the business, and navigate their business and build you have an equity participation in those things, and everyone wins if things go well. But you're still a little arm's length, right? You're not in the day to day. You're not dealing with the people issues. You're not dealing with the day to day operational issues. You're really there more from a strategic standpoint, and to provide advice and direction. And so I wanted to go even farther and be more in that operational side, and deal with the people side, and the everyday issues that entrepreneurs and business owners address. Those Not a lot of people like that. I mean, I think people believe they like that stuff, then they get into it, and it's a lot more challenging than you think.
Yeah, because you're dealing with a lot of personalities, a lot of things that in your head are working out or going to work out in a specific way, and then something comes along and that changes, and then you have to adapt and kind of I guess, what's the word? Rescope.
Reassess.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
reset.
So, yeah, and if you're gonna do that, I mean, you got to find something. If you're gonna do all that hard work, you got to find something you're really passionate about, you really believe in, because it is a tremendous amount of commitment and hard work. And I just was always passionate about coaching, really. Being an athlete, you respond to coaching, and I
Yeah,
found that, and I always saw that there wasn't a whole lot of coaching on the career side. Colleges and universities have completely under-resourced career services offices. At the time, very few, and still today, very few, resources that provide that level of really granular, and today even personalized guidance
yeah.
that can help you, one, get better, and two, better navigate to your career goals.
Definitely, I totally agree. With 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 that, I'm kind of curious. Um, what was Hcareers before you acquired it, and kind of can you kind of give us a little bit of background on what that is exactly? Because this is the hospitality podcast, so
Yep.
for anybody listening, that Hcareers is a hospitality career site, and so Ron, I'll let you kind of spiel back into the background of what it is and what it's going to be. And let's kind of talk about that a little bit more in the development side.
Yeah, I mean, we were drawn to Hcareers because of the position that it has had in the marketplace for 20 years. For 20 years, it's been serving both hospitality professionals and hospitality employers, and really being the preeminent and the first dedicated, career site, job board, focused particularly on the hotel and lodging industry. So a number of folks, when you talk to them, they grew up with Hcareers. They got 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs from Hcareers.
Mhm.
And so it had a great brand in the marketplace, and a great set of blue chip customers in the marketplace. All the big brands and management companies are and have been and still are customers of the organization for a decade.
Mhm.
And so we like to think Hcareers has served people well. I mean, here's the challenge. Over the years, it had been through a number of different ownership changes, and no one had really sort of invested, I would say, thoughtfully in the technology. And at the same time, there's been a huge investment in HR technology across the world. Companies like LinkedIn,
Yeah,
Indeed.com. These companies didn't even exist 15 years ago, and
definitely.
today they're behemoths of the industry, of the tech industry, and certainly HR industry. ZipRecruiter, Snag a Job. You can go down the line of all sorts of new technologies to help people identify and find careers. And Hcareers really hadn't kept up technologically, over that course in the development of these new competitors.
Definitely. So, I kind of in the beginning of the episode before this whole conversation starts, I listed off, there's more than 1 million vacant positions in the hospitality industry itself. And Lexi also kind of gave me the stats of, every 2.5 seconds, there's a new job added, and employers are looking for candidates with specific skills to fill those positions and who will thrive in a demanding, fast-paced environment. Why do you think, this is again a little bit off of our conversation earlier, but why do you think it is such a majority of open positions that are very hard to fill? And what have you seen with Hcareers and from the acquiring of that business, maybe going into that?
Yeah, let me also just riff off of a little bit of what I was talking about before too, which is, that's what Hcareers sort of was when we bought it. And we initially said, because of the extraordinary need and demand in the market for, a top-notch resource, we were going to come in and completely redefine that business. We were going to bring best-in-class technology to Hcareers, to the hospitality industry, to help address this massive problem. And that's what we've done. And in really a year's time, we've rebuilt the platform from the ground up. We launched it in early November, and it's a very different sort of experience for the job seekers and employers that we think is accretive and beneficial to the marketplace. And so, to get to answering your question about why, it doesn't, we are 3% unemployment. When I was an economics major in college, they had something called full employment. You never thought an economy could flourish if it had less than 4% unemployment. It's very hard to find talent. You also have changing tastes in the marketplace among job seekers, particularly Gen Z and millennials. They have a different appetite for jobs. They have a different view of what a job is and how it's supposed to fit into their lives. And that's sort of challenging. And specifically in hospitality, we did a survey in partnership with the AHLA, the Hotel and Lodging Association, of 3,000 Gen Zers, and asked them this question: what are they looking at? Why don't they think about hospitality? And in a nutshell, hospitality, and particularly hotel and lodging, it has an awareness problem. It has an awareness problem where 41% of people don't know anyone who works in the industry.
Really?
94% have never worked in the industry. 90+% have never taken a class related to hotels and lodging. And so, there's a big awareness problem. The other side is, hotels and lodging has an image problem. Where only 37% of respondents thought that it offered careers for someone like me, or was 45% said it not necessarily a career I could be proud of. These are things that in addition to unemployment, are kind of hurting the hotel and lodging industry. And not necessarily just because people believe these things doesn't make them true.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, but the challenge is the industry as a whole. We as an industry as a whole, we need to work to change that perception. And that's we're doing a lot of partnering and building technology that we hope can help change that perception.
Agreed. And I hope this episode really becomes a part of that perception change as well, because for me, I've been an avid preacher of, I think for me, I just kind of take it based off of my background. When I was in high school and middle school, I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. I changed my mind every 5 seconds, from a counselor to a firefighter to, mechanic, even though I'm nowhere mechanically inclined. There's so many things have changed in my head growing up, to the point of, I think, where looking at my career now from the hospitality industry and from where I've started to where I am, I'm a big believer in, if you don't know what the hell you're doing after college, or not after college, but after high school, or even going into middle school through high school, I think anybody and everybody, if you don't know what you're wanting to do, should work at a hotel or a restaurant, because there's so many different avenues and branches. Like, you have marketing, you have accounting, you have HR, you have guest relations, you have food and beverage, you have security, you have business that can tie into valet and all the other certain departments that you can learn certain key aspects from that I think are very important. You get to see a P&L every now and then. You get to see the certain revenue growth in the property, whether it's rooms department or food and beverage or parking or whatever, different like banquets and audio and visual. There's all sorts of different avenues. And I love that you guys are just wanting to bring an awareness to that, because I know from me, if I started in a hotel way sooner than when I did in my early 20s and started in my early teens or late teens, that it would have opened up my eyes to a whole different perspective of business and an overall job market / career.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, to that point, one of the recommendations that came out of the study that we wanted to make was, as we think about the hotel and lodging industry, we really need to integrate storytelling into into how employers communicate the brand and the opportunities. There are some great stories for folks in hospitality, and you've hit on a number of them. One is, one that's an important one is that, so many people you can start at the bottom and progress to the top. I mean, literally, you could start out waiting tables or cleaning rooms and become the CEO of a hotel business. You can certainly become a general manager and run a mini business.
Yeah.
The other thing that's great about the industry is they encourage you to move around. Folks want you to get that kind of cross-functional experience, and that's extremely valuable. And like a lot of industries will preach that, but they don't necessarily promote that.
Mm-hmm.
So and as you mentioned, there's each hotel is a mini business. There's all elements of every functional type of role you want, from engineering to marketing to finance to whatever, to guest services. And then I'd say finally, what you're also finding is people are poaching hotel employees. That's the other challenge what the industry isn't facing. Folks realize that, other employers realize that there's no better place to get people who have a customer orientation than hotels.
Yeah.
And increasingly now businesses realize that, one of their key differentiating features is how they treat and serve their customers. And so they're looking for people with that customer service orientation. So this industry actually can become a stepping stone to branch out of the industry. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of positive notes around the opportunities available.
I definitely agree. For career wise, like it's not a fast pace. Like definitely within, I think if you are committed and you start out from the very bottom, within 5 years or maybe less, you could work your way up to a higher up manager position, like a front office or maybe some kind of GM position. Excuse me. But I've seen people do it faster. I've seen people become, GM at 21 and they've been in the hotel for 9 months. So it's not an impossible, but when there are people that are in the industry for so long and they've been, maybe they just found their home property, whether it's a restaurant or a hotel or anything like that. If they're not going to leave, that leaves very little room to growth. And sometimes I think, especially with my generation, we get a little frustrated when we can't grow. And I think that's where, kind of like what you're saying, millennials and Gen Z, we're kind of the impatient aspect in that type of area. So maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm curious on to the numbers that you're from your survey are huge. I didn't even know that. What was the number on the people don't even think of it as a career, or don't even know anybody that works in the industry? That to me is just is mind blowing. So I guess I'm curious now, with you guys adopting the Hcareer platform and doing the relaunch, what tech and development are you guys, what is the future of it? What are we going to, I guess not we, but you going to do with, the Hcareer platform and growing it into the development side of its potential?
Yeah, I mean, well, quite frankly, I think as we look at the platform, and you said, what was Hcareers and what has it been? And it's been a job board.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the future of Hcareers as a job board. We see it as a recruiting platform, a talent acquisition platform, a talent development platform. And so that's sort of directly where we want to go. There's a lot of platforms out there, and most of the investment, I mean, a huge amount of investment has been made in the HR tech space over the last 3 to 5 years, and almost all of it actually is really focused on the employer, and that makes a lot of sense because the employers pay the bills.
Yeah.
But we firmly believe that if we can build an experience that a job seeker, that adds real value to a job seeker, to a candidate, such that they want to invest in this platform, not just when they're looking for jobs, but when they're looking to figure out how to advance in their current roles, and when they're thinking longer term about their career objectives. If we can build a destination, for those types of people, where they can commune with people, who are like-minded, who are best in class, and learn from them. If we can do that well, then we can, the benefit inevitably accrues to the employer, right? Because those folks will tell us more about their goals and their objectives and what they care about. And if they do that, then we can, present them a better fit with the right employer. And that employer, benefits from all of that information around their, their skill fit, their salary expectations, their culture preferences. And so that's really directionally where we're going, at its core. And there's some, unique tools that we've built into the platform that enable people to better understand their personal fit for an opportunity. And that's, again, as I mentioned, their salary expectation and fit, their skill fit. So we built the ability for individuals in, under 90 and ultimately 60 seconds to answer a few questions that are very, very granular, specific to the role, to tell them how good a skill fit they are for that opportunity, as well as, providing information around their preferences of benefits and perks that they care about, the values of the organization, the attributes of particular properties that they're interested in, whether that's an upscale property, an urban environment, have a spa or a golf course or resort, and then deliver them opportunities that map to those. And then at the same time, give the employer the ability to see how well that candidate's preferences and interests and skills map to the opportunities that they have.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Do you see that going into the kind of the role and the aspect of cutting turnover and the rate of turnover and the cost of turnover? Because I could see that being a huge benefit to both, let's look at the lens of, the career person who's looking for a job. That's, it prevents them, having to find another job 3 or 6 months down the road, where then it keeps that steady income in the household, and then as well as the employer not having to waste, which I think it was an average of $6,000 is what the cost of an employee, that goes into a training of an employee, and when they walk out the door, it's about on an average of $6,000. So kind of cutting back the labor cost and the turnover rate for the employer. Is that kind of like the overall role for that technology and kind of implementing that the new development of the program?
Yeah, that's one really important aspect of it. But not only cut it down in terms of, the more transparency you have about the opportunity going in, right? The less likelihood you have to leave, you will leave. But we shouldn't believe that this assessment and evaluation and navigation stops once you enter the organization.
Definitely.
It should continue inside of the organization, particularly when you talk about some of the large hotel companies that are, and often in many cases, trying to provide some transparency to help their own employees, as we just talked about. Employees move around from hotel and property to property. What's the right property for you? What are you looking for within the organization? And so that's actually where Virgil was born. Virgil was born as a technology that we built for large Fortune 100 companies like Accenture and JCPenney and Southern Company, to help them and help their employees, better navigate within their own organizations, provide that transparency around what I like to call the bears. What are the behaviors, the experiences, the achievements, the responsibilities, and the skills that make somebody prepared and competitive for that next role?
I
And
love that.
so when you provide that level of transparency, and we have data that supports this, you find that, not surprisingly, if you tell people what they need to do and what they're missing, they actually go and do more of those things, to the tune of 25% more of those things. And if they do more of those things, they get promoted faster, to the tune of almost twice the rate. And if they get promoted faster and they're doing those things and they feel like the organization is vested in their development, they actually stay 30% longer.
Wow.
So all of this is kind of, it starts outside of the organization, it continues inside of the organization. And reason we took Virgil outside of organizations is, at least inside you might have a boss or a manager or a mentor or a sponsor. Outside you have nothing. And so we wanted to, and this is what's coming next in Virgil, is the ability to give people their own personalized, very granular skill development roadmap that not only tells them, here's what you need to do to advance, in your career. I want to be an assistant manager. I want to be a sous chef. I want to be a banquet manager. Here's what I need to do. Here's the experience that I need to get, but also directs them to developmental resources where they can actually go and get those skills. So that's where we're going with this. And we feel like if we really do a great job with those candidates and those hospitality professionals, well, then employers are going to benefit multifold.
I agree so much. And I love that, because it really takes the meaning of, you can walk the walk, which or you can talk the talk, which is, a lot of companies do. They talk about, we want to develop and we want to hire the right people and we want to keep the right people and lower retention. And then you have the person on the career side who, I want to stay at a job long term. I don't want to have to keep searching for jobs and putting out resumes and doing the interview and getting to pretty much meet somebody and, bond and kind of quote unquote date or court for another time or another round. And then you guys are pulling the trigger. And that's the hugest thing for me, from being like in the trenches of management and operations on the hotel side and even in the restaurant side, that is where we lack the most, is pulling the trigger and actually getting the talk to walk, if that makes sense. And
well, it's hard. It takes a lot of time and energy. And, and the other thing is, one individual doesn't have all the answers, right? I mean, that's the other thing. We put so much pressure on a manager to be able to, provide this, specific guidance to an individual, when that manager may not have a personal understanding of that person's, skill sets and backgrounds and preferences, but also not even have all the answers. So, part of what we're doing is, I don't have all the answers. So we got to go out and find people that have the answers.
Yeah,
and we're able to go out and do that at scale and find subject matter experts to help refine it. And then, let people even, customize the surveys that we give for their own specific organizations or their own, or their own needs.
Wow. So for me, I just really want to emphasize to all the listeners, like, how key this is, because I know a lot of listeners are in the hotel restaurant space. So because I think that is one thing we can look at as a whole. I'm pretty sure you relate to it as well, coming just from your background, that the lack of resources is so huge. There's such a big gap when it comes to training, because a lot of it, thankfully, like, I'm a person that I learn on the job. I like to get my hands dirty and kind of figure it out and go with, the certain method and process that each property or position has. But there's such a lack of resources that, because you're right, every manager doesn't know all the answers. There's been many times where I've had my team come up to me and ask me a question and I have no idea how to respond, because I just don't have that resource, that info. So now, taking a step further, you guys get to, at Virgil, get to not only help match up the right set and make sure it's going to be a good fit skill wise for the employee and the employer, but now you're providing the resources upon completion of the employment, and then as well as developing into that position. So I think for all the listeners, just need to understand that I think this is such a tool that needs, because like you said, this is a conversation that needs to be really focused on, is that there's finally a resource out there for people wanting to actually make that step and that change. I think that's huge.
That's our goal. That's what we're building for. And we think, we can build something, transformative for the industry. We're committed to working with the industry to do that. And it takes some time, but we have some great partners in, our customers. We have some great partners in the Hotel and Lodging Association. The National Restaurant Association is a partner of ours as well. And so we think we can, do something that, adds real value.
I agree. I'm 100% on board. So just know Slick Talk is now officially an ambassador of Hcareers, and I will fully support what you guys are doing with Virgil and Hcareers. That's amazing. And I think all the listeners just really, I don't really push many things on my show. I really like to just create an open environment for a good conversation. But I think this is something that's so huge, especially for so many of my listeners that have reached out to me specifically about becoming a manager and developing and growing and asking questions on how to get to that point. I think this is something that for 2020, as the year is approaching, this is a huge, huge aspect that we need to focus on in an industry base. So I just want to say thank you for being on the show with that and kind of just being the company that opens up that door.
Well, we really appreciate it. And we're listeners here too. We want to encourage your listeners to, and maybe through your platform, and certainly come to Hcareers, but give us some feedback, reach out to us, let us know how we can better serve the industry. We need to hear from people, get their feedback on the work that we're doing. It's hard work. Ultimately the results, I think, are powerful for individuals and also for the industry as a whole. So thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And, look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, sir. So I'll talk to you soon. And thank you guys for tuning in to Slick Talk this week. And if you want to find out more, I'll have all the links and information. Where exactly can every listener find you guys? There's hcareers.com, I know, which I'll put in the show notes. But maybe some specific articles that you think will benefit and just can really use as a good tool for the audience.
Yeah, Hcareers is a great resource. We have over a decade of articles dedicated to career advancement and the career journey in the hospitality and hotel business. And so some great resources there, and also a lot of open jobs, as you well know, and as you noted.
Yes, sir. All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And Ron, appreciate being on the show. And we will hopefully have you guys tune in next week.
Great. Thanks very much. We'll have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.